All right, so we're going to go over pages 13 and 14 in your vectors packet. So this is going to go over how to break down basically a vector into its horizontal and vertical components. So we have 18.6 meters at 48 degrees north of east. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to draw our vector line. So let me switch over to pen. Okay, so we're going to draw our vector line or our direction lines. And I've got north of east, so north and east. So make sure you know your directions. Okay, now I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line just going through the middle of northeast. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where does that angle line go. So be careful with this. So it's always going to be your last letter. Okay, that is the direction that the angle line is touching. So it's going to touch east and then it's going to go north of it. So my angle is going to be 48 degrees. Okay, and then my hypotenuse is 18.6 meters. So anytime you see a measurement like 18.6 meters with a degree and direction, that is your hypotenuse. So what we're going to do is we're going to find our y and our x. We're going to break it into our east and north component. So remember, when we label a triangle, you have your hypotenuse. Now y is going to be opposite of your angle, so that is going to be your opposite, and then x is going to be your adjacent. Okay, so that's going to help us figure out which trig function to use. So I'm going to find y first. So I want to see which function has opposite, which is what I'm looking for. So that's your question mark. So let me put a question mark there. And I have hypotenuse. Okay, so the only one that uses opposite and hypotenuse is your sine function. So sine of your angle, which is 48 degrees, equals y, which we don't know, so that's your opposite. And then your hypotenuse is 18.6. Now what you're going to do is you're going to multiply both sides by 18.6 to get that off the bottom. Just be careful, make sure you're in degree mode, otherwise you might get a wrong answer. So my y value is going to be 13.82 meters, and that is east. I'm sorry, not east, that is north, my bad. Look at the wrong one, so that is going to be north. Okay, if you're asking why, it's because your y is your vertical and the one that's going vertical is your north direction. Now, if I want to find my x is your adjacent. So I'd see which trig function uses adjacent and hypotenuse, and that's going to be your cosine. So cosine of 48 equals x over 18.6. So it looks exactly the same as what we did before. Now we're just using cosine. Okay, so my x comes out to be 12.45 meters east. So those are your two answers right there. That's how we break down a hypotenuse into its vertical and horizontal components. So we're going to do number 2. So 20.4 meters per second at 32 degrees west of south. Okay, so I'm going to draw my directions. So west of south. So here's west, here's south. I'm just going to draw my line down the middle. Now, south is your last letter. Okay, so it's got to touch my south line and go west of it. So my angle is 32 degrees right here. And my hypotenuse is 20.4. Okay, so we're going to solve our x and we're going to solve our y. Okay, so again, I'm just stating that anything vertical is going to be y, anything horizontal is going to be x. So we're going to use our SOHCAHTOA stuff, so sine and cosine. So sine is going to help me find my opposite. So in this case, x is going to be my opposite. So this is where you got to be careful. Sine's not always going to find your vertical. It just finds the opposite. So depending on how you draw your triangle, okay, the opposite could be horizontal, could be vertical, okay? So, but regardless, sine is just going to help you find the opposite. So in this case, sine of my angle 32 equals x over my hypotenuse, which is 20.4. So multiply both sides by 20.4. And you should get 10.81 meters per second west. Okay, because that x is going west, it's horizontal. Now in this case, cosine is going to help me find my y because y is my adjacent now. Okay, so cosine of 32 equals y over 20.4. Okay, so multiply both sides by 20.4 and you're going to get a y value of 17.3 meters per second, and that is going to be south. Okay, moving on to the next one, 106 meters per second squared, so that's acceleration, at 60 degrees west of north. Okay, so I'm going to draw my directions. Okay, west and north. So I'm going to be the upper left quadrant. So west and north, it looks like that. Okay, north is my last letter, so it's got to touch my north line. So my angle looks like that, so 60 degrees. Okay, my hypotenuse is 106. And so that means we're looking for x and we're looking for y. Okay, so sine is going to help me find my opposite. In this case, it's my x again. So sine of 60 equals x over my hypotenuse, which is 106. Okay, multiply both sides by 106, and you should get an x value of 91.80 meters per second squared. Okay, and that is going west. Now cosine is going to help me find my adjacent, so cosine of 60 is going to help me find my y this time. Okay, over 106, multiply both sides by 106, and your y should come out to be 53 meters per second squared, and that is going north. Number 4, okay, just be careful with this, 640 N, that just means newtons, that doesn't mean north. Okay, so we're going to be in our southeast quadrant. Go south here, east here. Okay, so I'm going to draw down the middle. East is going to be my last letter. Okay, so it's going to be touching my east line. So it's going to be 18 degrees. My hypotenuse is 640. So that means my triangle is going to look like this. So now my opposite is going to be my y, and my adjacent is going to be my x. So sine of 18 equals y this time, so it's going to help me find my vertical. Okay, over 640, multiply both sides by 640, and you should get a y value of 197.77 newtons, and that is going south. Now cosine is going to help me find my adjacent, so it's going to help me find my x. So cosine of 18 equals x over 640, multiply both sides, and you should get 608.68 newtons, and that is going east. Number 5, 4.32 centimeters, 64 degrees west of south. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my directions. So we've got west, south, and I'm just going to go down the middle. Okay, south is my last letter, so it's going to be touching my south line because this is going to be 64 degrees. Hypotenuse is 4.32 centimeters. And my triangle looks like this. So I have x, I have y. So sine of 64 equals my opposite. Opposite's going to be x this time. So x over my hypotenuse, 4.32. Multiply both sides, and you should get an x value of 3.88 centimeters. And that is going west. Cosine is going to help me find my adjacent. So cosine of 64. My adjacent is y over 4.32, and you should get a y value of 1.89 centimeters, and that is going south. Number 6, 78.2, let me zoom back in, 78.2 meters per second. I don't know what's going on here. Let me go back in. There we go. All right, so 78.2 meters per second. 23 degrees north of west, so I'm going to draw my lines. I have my north, my west, draw my line. West is going to be my last letter, so it's going to be touching the west line. So my angle is right here, so 23 degrees. Hypotenuse is 78.2. So my triangles look like this, where y is going to be my vertical, x is going to be my horizontal. Okay, so sine of 23 is going to give me my vertical, my y, so y, over my hypotenuse, so 78.2. Multiply both sides by 78.2, and you should get 30.56 meters per second, and that is going north. Okay, so cosine of 23 equals x, so that's going to help me find my adjacent, over 78.2. And you should get an x value of 71.98 meters per second, and that is going west. Okay, number 7, this is the same thing, is we're just, now it's kind of in a word problem. All I'm asking you to do is breaking down your 28 meters per second, 35 degrees east and north, into north and east. So the exact same thing as what we've been doing. Okay, so I'm going to draw my direction. So I'm dealing with north and east. Okay, so it's the last letter is north, so it's going to be touching north. So my angle's right there, so I have 35 degrees. Hypotenuse is 28 meters per second. So x is going to be my opposite, y is going to be my adjacent. So sine of my angle, which is 35, equals my opposite, so x over my hypotenuse, which is 28. So multiply both sides by 28. You get 16.06 meters per second, and that is going east. So cosine of 35 is going to help me find my adjacent, which is y, over 28. Multiply both sides. Should get a y value of 22.94 meters per second north. Okay, number 8. The plane is flying 200 meters per second at 20 degrees above the horizontal. So when you draw this, when it says above the horizontal, that just means above the x-axis. So you can go this way if you want to. You can go this way if you want to. Honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you're above the x-axis. I always just go right. So my angle would look like this, so 20 degrees. Okay, I have my hypotenuse of 200 meters per second. So I'm going to find my vertical, which is going to be my y. My horizontal is going to be my x. So sine of 20 equals y, which is my opposite, over my hypotenuse of 200. So y should come out to be 68.40 meters per second, and that is just vertical. Okay, so if it doesn't have direction, you can just say vertical or horizontal. That's fine. So cosine of 20 equals x over 200. So your x value should come out to be 187.94 meters per second horizontal. Okay, so again, just above the, if it says anything, if it says above the horizontal, left, right's fine. Below the horizontal, left, right's fine, as long as you're above or below. Number 9, a rugby player runs across the field at 1.25 meters per second at 40 degrees south of west. Okay, so draw my direction. 40 degrees south of west. Okay, so I'm in my southwest quadrant. So west, south. West is going to be my last letter. Sorry. So it's got to be touching the west line. So that's going to be 40 degrees. My hypotenuse is 1.25. Okay, so my vertical is going to be my y, so that's my opposite. And then my horizontal is my x, that's my adjacent. So sine of 40 equals my y, which is my opposite, don't know, over 1.25. So y comes out to be 0.80 meters per second, and that is going south. And then cosine of my angle, which is 40, equals x over 1.25. And that comes out to be 0.96 meters per second west. So again, I know that video is very repetitive, but this repetition is key. It's literally just the same sine, cosine over and over again. You just have to really make sure you know how to draw your triangle correctly, because that'll tell you if you're looking for opposite or adjacent and which function to use.